Do your shoulders restrict you when you squat? Do you struggle to get under the bar? And do you find it impedes your ability to lift maximal weight? Today, we're going to dive into this issue a little further, and I'm going to show you some strategies and exercises you can do to work around this problem. If you want to squat heavy, you need to be able to get under a bar. People often think that the squat is just a lower body movement, but if you want to squat maximal weight, all parts of the body come into play. And that means the shoulders are part of that puzzle. They help keep the bar on your back. They help you stay tight. They help keep the upper body rigid so your legs can produce as much force as possible. If you can't get under the bar, if your shoulders are holding you back from being comfortable, you're going to find it really hard to lift the heavy weights that you want to. Now, with some people, being massive, having heaps of muscle, having poor range of motion in their shoulders doesn't mean that they can't lift. For some people, it just means that they have to have their arms wider. But if you're like me and not that big a person, and you find your shoulders are stopping you from being able to lift the weights you want and get under that bar comfortably, then addressing your shoulder range of motion might be something that you want to look into. Now, having issues when getting under the bar when you want to squat is normally caused by a few things. Common ones being someone has had an injury in that shoulder before. Potentially, you're just really big and muscly, and the ability for you to get your arms back where they need to be is therefore inhibited. Having poor shoulder range of motion is not the end of the world and does not mean you won't be able to squat heavy, by the way. There's plenty of squatters that have done so who can hardly get their arms up overhead. Maybe it even helps them a little bit because it means they're even tighter. But if you're like me, someone that's not that big, having poor shoulder range of motion when getting under the bar actually can impede your performance. Another factor to consider is that the human body is not built symmetrically, and chasing perfect symmetry is bullshit. You do not need to do it. You do not need to have perfect range of motion in every aspect of your body because it's something you're probably never going to have. You aren't built in a way to be symmetrical. Therefore, it completely makes sense that you're going to have some differences on the right and left side of your body. Now, when it comes to the shoulder, one of the most common things being aren't actually outside structures themselves. It's actually what's going on the inside. I'll have a diagram somewhere here. On the inside of your body, you have your heart on the left side. Your left lung is slightly smaller than your right lung, which therefore means that your right lung can expand, making itself bigger as it fills with air, slightly more than your left. It has more of a capacity to inhale air than your left. What does this mean for the shoulder though? Because the rib cage expands and compresses as you breathe, the movement of the rib cage can therefore affect your shoulder. Why? Because your scapula, your shoulder blade muscle, again, I'll have another image somewhere here, attaches to your rib cage. If you cannot expand each side of your rib cage effectively, you can have shoulder range of motion issues because your scapular mobility is therefore affected. The main point being here is that symmetry is bullshit. Don't worry about that. But if you find your shoulder range of motion restrictions are inhibiting your ability to squat and lift heavy, I've got some exercises for you. Let's get to the gym. Before I get into these exercises, you need to know that they have to be done consistently, they need to be progressed, and they need to be treated like any other exercise. The issue with a lot of mobility movements or movements that are designed to improve your range of motion is that people don't do them consistently enough, or they don't progress them. They half-ass them, do them at the start or end of a session. Maybe they'll do them once a fortnight, once a month, whenever, and then they wonder why they aren't getting any improvements. If you're going to do these exercises, if you want your shoulder range of motion to improve, if you want this to get better, you have to do it regularly. You have to treat it like any other exercise you would in the gym. I'm going to show you what it looks like if you do have a bit of a shoulder range of motion issue when you squat. I'm also going to show you some super easy tricks that you can do without having to do the exercises later on that might actually help as well. Okay, so generally this is what you're going to see when the person gets under the bar. If you have a bit of a shoulder issue, as you get under, this is the point where it's going to start to feel uncomfortable as the bar is sitting on the back. You might commonly see people widen their arms if they do have a bit of an issue. If you don't have a shoulder range of motion issue, you're probably going to have your hands pretty narrow when you pick up the bar. Otherwise, people who are a little bit restricted or don't find it comfortable to be so close, tend to have their arms a bit wider. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer here. One isn't better than the other. It's literally just what is better for you. You can do if you do have a bit of an issue with your shoulders. One, most people grip the bar with their whole hand like this, grabbing the bar. But what you can do instead is just get rid of your thumb, okay? So gripping the bar like this instead, taking the thumb out of the equation gives you a little bit more range in your shoulders. The other one that I had before that you saw is just widening of the hands, okay? Moving the hands wider. Easy as that. Both of the shoulders have more space to breathe. So before we begin, let's see if you have some range of motion issues between your right and left shoulder. This is a simple test you can do to test out your lat length, placing the arms overhead, trying to get your palms to the floor. You'll notice my left side's a little bit tighter than my right. Another one we can do is test the shoulder external range of motion. This one, we're keeping our back flat and just trying to get the wrists to the floor. So if you did the first two tests and found you had a restriction, let's begin with some exercises. This one is a breathing drill. As I said before, the scapula sits on the rib cage. Learning to expand and compress the rib cage will help your scapula glide. This one, we're focusing on deep inhalations and exhalations, keeping the elbows in and the wrists out. Now we're going to work on the serratus anterior muscle as well. This is the serratus floor slide. I'm pushing my hands into the foam roller, reaching as far as I can while maintaining a rounded upper back, not letting the upper body move much, mainly the arms, keeping my elbows in and wrists out. This is focusing on the serratus anterior as well as lengthening the lat muscle. The serratus anterior, important for movement of the scapula, the lat muscle, the length, important for getting my arm overhead. Now we're looking at the shoulder external rotation movement and the muscles involved. This one particularly focuses on end range, external rotation, lifting the wrist up, trying to reach as high as I can, and then lowering back down slowly. The block is just used to give me a little bit of extra range. This is targeting the rotator cuff muscles that are used during external rotation. You can add a weight into this exercise. This one is very similar to the previous one. Now we're just using a larger range of motion, and this one again is very easy to load. Using the elbow on the knee as a pivot point, slowly lifting and lowering the weight. You can go pretty heavy with this exercise. A lot of people don't know that training your arms can actually improve your shoulder range of motion. So here I've thrown in a whole bunch of arm exercises you can do that can help you with your shoulder range of motion. The muscles that are involved in flexing and extending your arm, bicep, tricep, and other ones are all attached to the shoulder. Training them in the right planes of motion can help improve your shoulder range of motion and give you a sick pump. Generally, you want to do exercises that require your arms to be overhead or allow your scapula to glide forward or back on the rib cage. These are just a few examples. They're not the only ones you can use, but these are some of my favorites. I find that they're all really good, can be loaded up, and if you do them consistently, you'll definitely notice changes in the range of motion of your shoulder. All of these exercises can be integrated in your program easily. And that's a wrap on another YouTube video. I hope you got something out of it. If you're someone who has shoulder range of motion issues when you squat, if your shoulder is throwing your squat out of whack, if it is making things harder, try some of those exercises out. I'm sure you'll have plenty of success. Treat them like you would any other exercise and your shoulder will get better and it will stop impeding your performance. Any questions, comment below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.